Hey, hello, how are you guys doing? You're welcome once again to your number one entertainment program on Crownfield Television. As usual, you know the program is Youth and the Streets. Yes, I know you guys might be wondering why I started off to this program with that song coming from the legend himself, Michael Jackson. Yes, so today we're going to be looking at Michael Jackson from a fashion perspective. You will agree with me that even more than 15 years after the legend himself has passed on, his influence is still being felt in the world of entertainment. His impact, his legacies are still, to a very large extent impacting in the life of the current generation of musicians that we have. When you talk about the world of fashion, these days you can see, sampling, you can see fashion designers or fashion houses doing during a redesign of his old jacket that he used during his peak days while he was still alive. Now, like I said, we're going to be talking about the legend himself from a fashion perspective. If you happen to know Michael Jackson back then, especially if you've ever had the opportunity of watching any of his stage performance or any of his concerts, you will agree that his taste of fashion is usually very outstanding. Now, very little is known about the source of his fashion. I know before now, a lot of people, if not everybody, believe that the king of pop, the late king of pop himself, Michael Jackson, must have been the one that gave birth to the concept of those clothes he wore whenever he was performing on stage. But this is the shocker. Michael Jackson met a fashion designer back then in the 80s who goes by the name Bill Frank Wilton. Bill Frank Whitney was one of the early big names in the American fashion world. So Michael Jackson met this guy, and from there they started a relation. Now, one thing about this guy is he's so good to the point that he was involved in the fashion, in the dresses of at least about 20 music groups back then in the US, including one of the most popular among them, the Commodores. We all remember the Commodores. That was the group that Lionel Richie was part of in his early days in his music career. So Bill Frank Wilton and Michael Jackson, they met in the early 80s, and since then up to late 90s, he was the one that was designing the clothing that Michael Jackson, or his costumes that he was using whenever he has to perform on stage. Now, one sad thing is their relationship ended on a very bad note because Bill Frank became a very, very controversial figure, involved himself in so many controversies. So one great thing about this guy is officially he never went to anywhere to learn the fashion work. Rather, his mom was a tailor, and that was where he acquired the skills from. Now, he went to California to set up his own fashion shop. The shop was located at the second floor of a particular building, which made it very, very difficult for anyone to notice it. And guess what? The shop was there for about 6 months without any customer coming to patronize him. Now, the breakthrough for this guy came when one of the most popular musicians at that time, after he parted ways with Michael Jackson, he officially created another fashion house which was called Workroom 27. The factory had about 50 staffs, 50 employees. The company had about 50 employees, were making clothes for stage performances for artists, top artists back then in the US. Another milestone achievement for this guy, Bill Frank Wilton. You remember the famous hand glove that Michael Jackson used to wear while he was alive whenever he wants to perform? The one he wear on just one of his hand. The glove was originally made by this guy, Bill Frank Wilton. Bill Frank Wilton died of cancer on April 8, 2006, and he was buried in Los Angeles, California. So there you go, there you have it. Most of those iconic dresses you saw Michael Jackson wore while he was alive, whenever he's performing, were not actually his concept. The concept, the ideology behind those clothes was given birth to by this great guy, this great fashion designer called Bill Frank Wilton. So let's have a peep. Let's look at how their relationship went, how it ended, and the things they were able to create when it comes to preparing Michael Jackson for most of his stage performance. Let's have a peep at it. I'll be right back. Stay tuned.